Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. We got a lot of material to cover tonight, and we want to make sure that we give you plenty of time for Q&A. Make sure that you understand that Wendy looks at the Q&A instead of the chat, so that if you have some questions you want to ask, please go over there. It's kind of easier to control. When you start doing the chat, everybody can jump on that and ask questions. We're going to be talking about the social reasons for a safety team. We feel like that you can break this down in multiple different levels. And so this is going to be kind of like part two of why to set up a safety team. So as we get started here tonight, once again, we're just going to talk about it. When we say social reason for safety team, social means relating to the society. And what we see when we take a look at all the different things that are happening around this country, I mean, we've watched it kind of get just out of control here. There's a lot of turmoil going on, but it is just more the reason to make sure that when your church starts back up, if it has not started back up, ours is going to be starting up in July the 5th. We're really excited about that. We're going to bring everybody back. We have decided as a church that we would not come back until we could bring our children's ministry back, because we feel like that's one of our most important ministry that we have with our church. So, of course, it's a sign of the times. You know, DHS, we're going to say this over and over and over again so that you kind of understand this. They're telling us that when we get ready to start bringing people back into the church, to make sure that we dust off our security plans, our safety plans. You know, another reason why we talk about this as far as reasons to have a safety team is just because everybody that comes into your church has a reasonable expectation of safety. And if you don't have something in place of where an incident happens that you might have been able to prevent it, or if you knew of something and didn't do anything, you really need to have some sort of safety plan written out here so you know what you're doing and your policies and procedures. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is just what we're seeing out here. DHS also put out there that additional stressors caused by the pandemic, caused by the tension going on with all the other stuff around the world, these are things that are very important that we need to be paying attention to, because it is just, it's in front of us, folks. It really is. And sin and Satan is alive and well, and they're going to do anything to stop us. They've already tried to stop us. If you haven't seen this, please pay attention to what is going on. And so what we're going to do tonight is talk about the social reasons for having a safety team. Now, last week we talked about the biblical reasons, and we gave you plenty of scripture to where you can go back to your church leaders and you can say, if you read this, Nehemiah, if you read Isaiah, if you read Ezekiel, Ephesians, and First Peter, these verses right here, this is stuff that is going to just really enlighten your church staff, pastors, leaders, the elders, the deacons, that really the Bible tells you to protect the flock. And when we talk about protecting the flock, that doesn't mean about protecting them just like God will take care of us. No, he expects you to be good shepherds. So when we get into biblical reasons, that was last week that we talked about this, and we want you to understand that there's plenty of information and plenty of things that you can put out there that will help you as far as the biblical reasons. But now tonight, we're going to get into the social issues. So social issues that are going to face the church are going to be a lost child, kidnapped child, medical emergencies, disruptive attendees, domestic violence, fire, homeless panhandlers, and then also social media, and of course, active shooter. But the reason why we're only going to talk about these things right here is because it is the thing that we see the most when we're looking at what is happening in our churches. And when you think kidnapped child, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, but these are the things that we think that if you're doing anything, you should have some sort of plan on what you would do in case these events happen. Now, we talk about lost children. I cannot tell you how many times in our church, and I put this in parentheses, that we have misplaced a child. Now, I will give you a good example of where this happened, but I'll tell you the story in a second, but what I want you to understand is that we had a procedure in place. And instead of everybody, just coming to rushing to the children's ministry, we had everybody hold their position. And then we started to systematically look for the child. We had a child that was in the first grade, and she had a really close friend that was in the second grade. So she decided after the initial worship, where they're all together, that she wanted to go into the classroom as her friend. Well, once she went in there, the volunteer that was looking over the children realized that she was missing. So she immediately contacted the ministry leader, who contacted us, and two of us went back to the children's ministry. When we got there, they gave us a description that the little girl had on a sundress that looked like an Easter dress that was yellow, bright, and it would be easy to spot. We went through room to room looking for this child, and what we found out, like I said, she went with one of her friends to a different class, but she had on a black shirt and tan pants. So, even though there was a little bit of a panic there for a second, you need to keep your heads cool, because one of the things that we recommend is that you contact the parents to see if maybe they came early and got the child. We have a 2-tag system to where we place a tag on the child, and we place we give a tag to the parent. That parent does not show up with that tag, we don't let them have the kid. Now, of course, if they produce ID, we know them. We handle it different ways, but we have to be careful, because if you kind of look right here, November 2016, the reason why I talk about this one in Tyler, Texas, a 10-year-old girl was abducted from church. Now, she was abducted from her cousin's husband, not blood relative, but cousin husband, that they had played together before. They had been out playing, and then he just told her to get in the truck with her, and they left. And later on, they found her dead. But even now, here recently, June 2019, and that's Batavia, New York, a man tried to abduct an infant from the church. He went back to the children's ministry and by force took an infant and walked back out and sat in the church service. And the parents happened to look over and see this man with their child, and they thought, what is he doing there? And then in July of 2019 in Miami, Florida, a child was abducted from church by her mom, but she did not have custody of the children. So we have these type of situations of, supervise who has the children and who doesn't. And really, that's how we got started. We had a guy that was in violation of his supervision, his supervised visitation with his children. So it does happen. And so what do? Make sure you train your safety team members, and you make sure that you train those that work in your children's ministry to be on the lookout for these type of things. There was another one that was talked about that happened several years ago, where a woman went to several different churches until she found one that she could go in and act like one of the nursery volunteers. Nobody really questioned her, and she took a child. Thank goodness, thank the Lord that the child was rescued and recovered, and the woman, was arrested. But she went in and checked out the different churches before she went into one to where she felt like she could go in and act like a volunteer. So these are some of the issues that we see facing us right now with children. Now, medical emergencies are going to be one of the things that you're going to have more of than anything else. We can't even stress this. You really need to have a medical team under your safety team. And we're going to be doing a lot more with this on the medical side. We have talked to some companies here recently in reference to Stop the Bleed, and we're going to be adding that as one of the things that we want to have. But medical emergencies can affect members and attendees of all ages. We get calls all the time from our children's ministry where two boys are running across the room and bump heads, and one of them has a bloody nose or a black eye. So we have our medical team go in and do a report because it needs to be covered. We had a little kid running around at nighttime one night and ran into a handicap sign and really put a line straight down the middle of his body. It took his legs right out from underneath him. But these are type of emergencies that you may have. Yes, heart attacks, people who can't breathe. We have seen all of these in the church that we have. You need to have first aid kits inside your church facility, and they should be strategically placed to where your safety team and your medical team members know where they are so that they can get them quickly when needed. You also should invest in an AED. You should have at least one if your campus is large, multiple ones. Yes, they are a little bit expensive, but there are government grants out here that I have seen are grants for churches for AEDs. And plus, a lot of these companies will work with you if you are a church. So reach out when you're getting ready to look for one. But medical emergencies are going to be the thing that's going to be facing you inside the church more than anything else. Now, disruptive attendee. I can't say enough about this because a lot of times when I read these or see these that happen, I think that we should have been way ahead of it. We should have been, we should have noticed it and stopped it before it happened. Now, DHS says there's going to be stressors. I've been talking to churches across the country, and one of the things that they're concerned about, I was on Sunday night with the church safety guys, and they were talking about seekers, mockers, and predators. That's what they're afraid of coming in. We've kind of put it at a different way of people who think that the COVID-19 pandemic was a hoax, people that come into your church and tell everybody that it's the end of the world, and those that come into your church and are really afraid of what is going on because it's confusing. We all understand this. It is confusing, the news that we get back and forth, and we want to get back to as close to normal as we possibly can. So we have to start watching for these disruptive attendees because they do appear. October 2019, Claremont, California. A woman walked in through a back door that was left unlocked, got inside with a child in her arm, and walked up and interrupted the service and held a gun in her hand with the baby in the other hand. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. They were able to get the gun away from her, but she completely stopped the service. And it was really, go out, the video is out there. You can search for it on YouTube and see it. It's very scary. Skowhegan, Maine, police said that the quick action of the church, and this goes back to the medical emergencies, but the quick action of the church who had overdosed on drugs, they saved him. I mean, it was their action that saved this guy. Now, there's a little kicker to this story right here. The guy was in a car that he had stolen from his mother, and when the police started chasing him, he jumped out of the car in the nude and ran into the church. That'll disrupt your church's attendance at that moment in time. I can tell you right now, it's going to stop it. So these type of things are things that do happen across the country. One of the things that I always talk about, and one of the things that we do in our training, is we talk about the Grace Community Church, Sun Valley, California, the John MacArthur Church. You can see in this picture, there's a man here that walks up on the stage while John MacArthur is preaching and interrupts the church service. And if you notice here, he points his hand at John. This could have easily been a gun, but he calls himself a prophet. He said that he was a prophet and that he was there to tell John that he was wrong in his teachings. Now, if you kind of notice here, there's not anybody up there on the stage with him. You do see the guy in the middle right down here who is starting to make his way up there. But in our training, when we talk about this situation that happened, it's a good 8 to 10 seconds before that safety team guy gets up on the stage. So these are things that you need to be looking for. This guy was dressed in all black with a backpack on. You can't see the backpack from this picture, but he had a backpack on. And I tell people, unless he's a Johnny Cash fan and you know it, and he's dressed in all black, and you do not know him, you need to go up and start talking to him because that just seems to be the color of people that want to start trouble. We've kind of noticed it here lately. Now, domestic violence. This is something that I've been watching because people are saying that there's a rise of it. And I haven't seen statistics on it, but I do notice other articles out there that are talking about because families are not like working at an office, but spending a lot of time inside the house with the children there and the different things like that, that it is causing some issues. And so this is one of these things that we really need to start paying attention to when our churches open back up. Now, I went out and was looking at some of the information on domestic violence, and Lifeway does Lifeway webpage does an article calling Facts and Trends, and it talks about the 5 myths the church often believes about domestic violence. Myth number 1, it doesn't happen in Christian homes. We know that, I mean, most of us already know that that's not true, but there are churches, and we read articles about this all the time, where they don't think of it, that it can happen in a Christian home. They don't think sexual abuse can happen in a Christian home. It is very scary when people get this mindset. Myth number two, submission will solve the problem. I have heard this preached in churches. I have heard pastors preach that when a woman comes in that has been beaten up by her husband, she needs to submit to him and that God will handle it. I have heard it preached. That's not what we need to do. In fact, you need to check with your laws, because if you are aware of a battered spouse, some states require you to report it to the police department. So you should check into it. And let me say it one other way. If you have a battered spouse that you don't do anything about and she ends up getting killed, it's going to haunt you. So we need to make sure that we're paying attention, and submission will not always solve the problem. It's the woman's fault. Myth number three. Well, I kind of have to say on this one here, sometimes it's the other way around. It's the man's fault. We have seen more and more cases of women being the aggressor in the domestic violence. And I think one of the reasons why we kind of see this is men know that they'll go to jail here in the state of Florida if they assault their wives. They know it. All it has to do is some sort of physical evidence, and it doesn't matter whether it was done in the presence of the law enforcement, they're going to take you in. So we've seen several times in the church where the woman was the aggressor and was arrested for it, and then a court order placed against her to not be anywhere near the husband. So it can work both ways. But when something happens, don't look at either one of them and say, well, I think it's your fault, or I think it's your fault. Sit down and see if we can't get to the root of it. Domestic abuse isn't as bad. Domestic abuse isn't as bad as domestic violence. We have seen ladies in our church just totally beat up because of the domestic abuse that happens. And we need to be aware of those things. And when they start talking to us about it, it really needs to be the church that reaches out to see if we can help here. We have this stigmatism a lot of times that we don't want to get involved. But if we don't get involved and it goes really bad, we're the ones that this is what we talked about last week in Ezekiel, where God was talking about, when I bring that person to you and tell you about his sins, you need to do something about it, because if you don't, and he kills somebody or kills himself, that his blood is on you. So we need to make sure that we as Christians are out here to help those involved in domestic violence. And as a safety team, you need to be trained on what to look for in these type of situations. Myth number five, if an abuser is truly sorry and forgiven, the relationship should be reconciled. This is one that's hard for me. We always want to believe that a person can change, but a lot of times they don't. And we see it over and over and over again, that people continuously commit the crimes or commit the sins. And it's not until they truly surrender to Christ that we truly see a change. So you need to be careful when an abuser comes in and says, I'm sorry, and 2 weeks later does it again, and then comes back and says, I'm sorry again. Like I said, check your states. You may be required to contact local law enforcement because you're aware that the woman is being involved in domestic violence. You should make sure that you know what's going on. Fires and natural disasters. I think that I'm really surprised when I walk into a church and they have no fire plan. That just really surprises me a lot. I put these together because I feel like that we need to have some sort of emergency action plan because of the different things that can happen in our church. Right now, as we're sitting here doing this webinar, there is a storm coming through our house. We have been inside my church when the tornado warnings came out. And, the question was, where do we go in the church? And it was really I kind of felt a little awkward here because I thought I knew where we should go, but I was completely wrong, and it needed to be another location in the church. Know those areas. If you have a tornado coming your way, you need to be sure that you know how to get those people to those areas. Now, if you don't have a fire safety plan, like I said, this is one of the things that you have to do right now. This is, tomorrow, get together with your team and have a fire safety plan. Have your exits marked out. Have points to where your children will go, and then have rendezvous points to where the parents know this is where they can go to get their children. But make sure when you have the rendezvous point for the children's ministry where they're supposed to go, get your safety team members out there to help them out, because when they get to that point, you want to make sure that you got all your kids and you're not worried about one still being inside the church. You do all of that before you turn it over to the parents. You make sure that you count and know who they are. If you have, is your church a shelter in case of things like hurricanes? We have hurricanes here all the time. Is your church a shelter? If it is, you need to know exactly how many people you can hold, what you're going to be doing when these people come into your church. I know ours is not, because it doesn't have a place really. It doesn't have the facility to be it. Would we open up if push comes to shove? Sure we would. But we would probably open up as a distribution place where we could take things and take it to people. If you know that there's going to be a flood, and a flood can happen anywhere, the Midwest here, anywhere, have a plan to where you get property out of the way of the floods if you can possibly do that. And of course, we've seen more and more arsons going on out here. And this is just something that really concerns me, because we saw in May of 2020, a church that defied the COVID virus restriction was burned to the ground. And somebody spray painted on their sidewalk, "Bet you stay home now, hypocrites." So you have to understand, there are people out here that look at churches and the stressors that are happening. This could be a reason why they go back and start a fire, an arson on your church. So you need to have this talked about and be in a plan. Homeless and panhandlers. We have a lot of churches that feed the homeless. You need to be careful when you're doing these things because of the certain dangers that go in that. I've talked to many of churches that they have people that get angry because another person gets one more piece of chicken than the other person, or different, cuts in line and different things like that. So you need to make sure that you're aware of this. You keep it straight. You make sure that they know who you are and what you're doing, and what are the guidelines, what are the rules. Make sure that you put down how this is supposed to happen. And anybody that deviates from this can be asked not to come back for the feeding or to stay. Now, panhandlers, we get a lot of them down here in Florida. In fact, that's what these three pictures are all about. The two on the bottom were panhandlers that came to church. The gentleman there was asking for money to get to a job in West Virginia, and it turned out that he hit 3 or 4 different churches before it came to our attention that it was the same guy. The lady in the picture came in and asked for money. When they told her that they didn't give money out to people that were not members, she got angry and disrupted the church service. So here is a panhandler that now disrupts your service. So these are the things that you need to watch for. Now, the van, the reason why I put the van up there is because the guy driving this van showed up at the church and said he needed money because he was going to DC to help the president. And when the safety team member told him, "We do not give money out, we only give money to members," and this is something that you should have a policy on. What you should do as far as when people come in and ask you for money, it's real easy. There's a couple of things that you can do here. First off, you say, "We don't give out money." And we only give out, and what we do is we pay a bill. So if you have an electric bill, you need help financially, we'll pay the electric bill, but we only help people who are members of the church. That cuts out a lot right there and gives you a lot of leadway. Those are the things that you really need to say, because it's very important that you protect yourself. But the person that was in this white van went up to my friend and said, "I need money." He went through the procedures that we have told him to say. First off, he said, "It's a Wednesday night, so we're not taking a collection." And he says, "Well, you need to take a special collection." So my friend Kevin came back and said, "Well, we don't give money to people who are not members of the church." And he says, "Well, I am a member because I'm a member of the Southern Baptist Convention." This guy had been here before. This guy had been through this procedure before because he had the right answers to say. Now, Kevin looked at him and said, "Well, we're not a part of the Southern Baptist Convention, so I really can't help you." And at this point in time, the guy said, "If you don't give me some money, I'm going to cut you up and everybody inside the church." So we went from a panhandler now to a threat. So you have to be careful with the panhandlers. You truly do. You want to be as firm as possible. You want to make sure that you explain to them the rules. And if they start to get disruptive, get on the phone, call the police, get your safety team there if you got one, and make sure that you handle the situation. So be careful in that. Now, social media. This is something that I don't think a lot of churches have been thinking about, or maybe if they have thought about it, they maybe haven't paid a lot of attention to it. But one of the things that we want to do is make sure that you're watching your social media. Here recently, we had a thing called Zoom bombing. And that was where you would have a Zoom meeting and somebody was coming in and taking over the meeting and putting pornography and different things out there like that. So other times we've had situations of where our church, somebody has tried to break into our church's firewall. We had one a couple of days ago that the IRS, it said that it was IRS trying to get into our website. And then there was another one that was a group that we didn't want them to be in. So you should be checking your Facebook at all times and you should be paying attention to it. Now, I went to a church one time where I went and looked at their ratings on Facebook, and I saw a guy that had posted on their Facebook page that this church had a large degree of paganism and New Age symbolism, the warping of the word, and the Luciferian imagery. Now, he described being inside the church. You need to be paying attention who's writing things on your Facebook page, your Google reviews, all the different things like that. Because I tell you, a lot of people go out and review these to see if there's any issue that you have at your church. And one of the best ways to do this, of course, is to respond nicely. We're sorry that you had a bad time at our church. We hope that, if you could come in and we could talk to you, something like that, but at least try to respond. This church that I'm talking about had the large degree of paganism, the guy that written it. They didn't respond to his post. They had responded to everybody else's post. So I guess they felt that it would be okay. Maybe he'll just go away and they'll never hear of him again. But you don't know if that guy might show up at your church. We had a church that was doing a service honoring our first responders. And they had a guy that came across and said, all first responders are murderers and killers, and you shouldn't be having a service for them, that they're going to go to hell. Well, they called me and said, what should we do about this? I went and looked at the post, was able to identify this guy. He was from up northern Florida. We were able to get more pictures on him, which we passed out to the safety team members. And then we also noticed that he had been arrested for assault before. So we had a lot of information on this person that we needed to make sure that we covered. So be leery and be watching your social media. Okay. And of course, the last thing that we talk about, and the thing that everybody wants to talk about, but every time I go into a church and sit down with a new pastor and I talk to him and he says, I have more chances of being struck by lightning than having an active shooter happen in my church. He's absolutely correct. He is absolutely correct. But we were reading, Wendy was telling me that there was a situation here in Florida that just happened probably Sunday, where it looks like a guy went into a church to rob the church again. We're going to get more information on that. But these are things that do happen inside these churches. And what we want to do and what we want to train on is to be proactive and not reactive. And of course, I could go down a list of all the different ones, but I'm just going to cover a few. And the reason why I'm going to cover them is because I want to point out what caused these things to happen. If we look at the West Freeway Church of Christ shooting, that was a robbery gone bad. I will say from my professional career that I can base it on what I've seen all my life in law enforcement. It was an armed robbery that went bad. In fact, now I've been noticing that some of the newspaper articles are starting to say that this person was always mad when they would not give him money. So it's going to be an armed robbery gone bad. When we look at November the 5th, 2017 at Sutherland Springs, where 26 people were killed and 20 were injured, that was a domestic issue. The wife had been tied up at the house. The husband had been sending threatening text messages to his mother-in-law. That was domestic violence. When we take a look at February 28, June 17, 2015, Charleston, South Carolina, of course, at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, this was a racist that walked into a church and was wanting to start a civil war. That's what he based it on. That's what he said after he was arrested and when he was being interviewed. He wanted to start a war. So this was a racist person that walked into a majority black church and shot and killed non-innocent people. On February 28, 2016, the St. Peter's Missionary Baptist Church in Dayton, Ohio, a brother shot his other brother over issues in relation to inheritance that was coming from their parents that had just passed away. I mean, the brother got up in the middle of the church service and shot and killed his other brother. It's just sad, but these are domestic issues again. You need to be aware if there's animosities going on among the families. You need to be paying attention to these things. September the 24th, 2017, Burnett Chapel Church of Christ in Antioch, Tennessee. This was a revenge killing, revenge shooting of the Charleston shooting. The shooter had left a note out in his vehicle that he was going to kill 10. The one extra one was for the white shooter in the Charleston, South Carolina shooting. He wanted to, avenge the people that this guy had killed. Fortunately, well, let me rephrase that. Unfortunately, one person was killed outside, but one of the ushers grabbed a hold of this guy, and in the midst of the fight, a round was discharged and hit the shooter. But that he still injured other people inside the church, injuring 7 others. December the 2nd, 2012, another domestic issue where we see the First United Presbyterian Church in Pennsylvania. The husband walked in, they had been separated. When you have a situation where the family has been, the husband and wife have separated, and all this, and the husband has not been there for a long time, and he shows up at your church, you need to sit down with him and talk to him and see how he's doing, see where his head is. Because while his ex-wife was playing organ in the church service, he walked up and shot and killed her. Now, I want to talk that there's also, when we talk about white supremacy and racism and things like that, we have to remember that even any house of worship can be attacked, because on August 5th, 2012, 6 members of a Sikh temple of Wisconsin were killed by a white supremacist. So there's a lot of hate. Robberies. People don't realize that there's a lot of robberies that happen to churches over the year. It's just that we don't talk about these things. These things do happen. So we do have to train on all these things that we talked about, all the things that we listed in this tonight. These are reasons why you really need a safety team, because one of these situations is going to face you in this church. You're going to have a lost child. You're going to have a kidnapped child. You're going to have medical emergencies. You're going to have a disruptive attendee. You're going to have a domestic violence, because it's just something that is being seen more and more. Like I said, I want to see the statistics of it. You're going to have fires and natural disasters. So you need to have a plan for these. You need to have that fire plan. You're going to have homeless and panhandlers. Your social media, please start watching it, because if somebody starts to put hate out there, it's only a matter of time before they may show up at your church and try to carry something out. So make sure that you're looking at that. And of course, there's active shooters that are going to happen in churches across this United States. We have to be prepared for them. And right now, with everything that is going on, I think we really need to be on the lookout for these type of things that can happen to our church. So, Wendy, anybody got questions out there?
I have no questions. Does anybody want to type in any questions that you may have? I don't see anything.
All right. Gave me a chance to get a drink, though. All right, no questions, and we will proceed. I need you to go out. I need you to go out. I'm not going to touch anything right now. Need you to go out to our webpage and read the blog, please. It's now the time. It's now the time for Christian Revolution. This is very important. This is something we really need to be reading, and we really need to be thinking about. This country is in turmoil right now, and the things that are going on are just really concerning. And the only way that we can change this country is through Christ. That's just all there is to it. And we need you to do us a favor, read it, and post it on your Facebook. Facebook did flag it as controversial. I don't think they read it. And maybe if they did, I don't know if they think that the words Christian Revolution is a terrible thing. But they said controversial, but they said it because of the COVID-19. Yes, we did talk about the COVID-19, but we talked about how it affected the churches. We didn't talk about it any other way than that. We didn't call it a fake virus. We didn't say any of those words like that it's not true. We just talked a little bit about it. But they flagged us, and we can't boost this, and we'd like to get it out because we've got really good response from it. So please go now read it after we get finished here, and then do us a favor and post it on your post it out there on your Facebook. All right, Sunday nights we do the Church Safety Network on our Trinity Security Allies Facebook Live. We talk about issues that are facing us right now and going on in the country. It's 30 minutes. We love for you to come out. Like I said, we're covering the topics of the day. And trust me, there is a lot going on. We're looking at reaching out to different people. We just don't believe in the war between the races or the sexes. God sees us all of his children. He sees no color. He sees us as perfect. He sees us as children of God. And this is the thing that we need to start focusing on and making sure that we're paying attention to and helping each other out here. So come out Sunday for our Facebook Live. We still have our resources out there. We're putting our stuff on YouTube. It is out there. Also, God Logic Project, Kevin Haggerty has us come on and talk about some of the issues of the day. The other week, we talked about how do we start to get back together? How do we start to rebuild after what has been going on out here? So please go out to either one of these and like it, share it. Let us know that you've been out there looking at some of this stuff. We're putting it out there. Now, we're also going to be putting stuff out in a private page, which I'll talk about or let Wendy talk about here in a minute. I'm going to put her on the spot. We do have our free resources out on our webpage, putting together a safety team, developing a safety team, church carrying weapons in the church, and Sunday morning what to look for. Ways that you can support us. We appreciate the prayer. I tell you that right now. I know that prayer moves mountains. It really does. And we accept your prayers. We believe in your prayers. So if it's all that you can do is pray for us, thank you very much. But we also do have memberships. And we have memberships at $125 a month or $1,200 for the year. We give you a little bit of a discount. And with that church membership, you do get training, and plus you get tickets to our conference, which is going to be in October. And we're already talking about getting some people down here. We're really excited about it because Wendy and I are in the works of doing some things where we're going to be traveling across the country, and we're going to be looking for people to come and talk to us at our church safety conference. We have been blessed by the people that we've had speak at our conferences before, so we're really excited about it. We also have the online membership program, which is $25 a month. It's $20 a month right now, and Wendy has extended it till when, Wendy?
The end of the month.
The end of the month, okay, to the end of June. It'll be $20 till the end of June, and this will give you weekly online training and access to video training library and one ticket to the church safety conference. For $20 a month, you really help us out a lot. You might not think that that's a lot of money, but it is when we're doing with the things that we're doing right now. Also, we have training, a la carte training, where we'll come into your church. We're starting to see churches as open up. We're going to be trying to do some training. I know that we're going in October. We're going up to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I've already been contacting my friends up in that area and telling them they need to come up for the training. And of course, we are always open for donations. If you know of a company that is looking for a 501c3 they'd like to support, we'd love to talk to them. USCCA. I can't talk enough about this right now with everything that is going on in this country. If you don't have some sort of protection that'll help you out in case you get involved in a shooting, this is something you need to look at. Really, if you get involved with just defending yourself, you need to talk to these people. They're very good to us. We're an affiliate. I can't say enough about their training. The magazine that they put out, it's really good material. For what you get a lot. And you don't drive without your insurance, so you shouldn't be carrying without some sort of protection. So go to our website, click on the USCCA logo that you see on our website, and that'll take you to where we get, like I said, we're affiliates, and they treat us really well for everybody that signs up for their protection. Do we have anything out there, dear?
No, but you want to talk a little bit about what's going to happen next week?
We're going to continue on this, and we're going to talk about the type of people that should be on your safety team. And we're just going to go through that. This is going to probably be, maybe next week will be the last week that we'll be talking about developing the safety team. And then we're going to try to do some other things. And some of the other things that we want to do is to start having more Zoom and having more people on so that you can get different points of view from different people. We've been talking to the church safety guys. They're on Sunday night. We've been on their webcast, and I think I'm going to try to get them on ours so we can kind of like give you a different point of view of different things that are happening around the country.
Okay, well, I don't see anything else.
All right. I really appreciate you coming out. Just a quick prayer for all of us. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you. I want you to watch over my brothers and sisters that have come out here tonight for this training. Lord, I know that their heart is all about protecting the flock and protecting the bride. Lord, I thank you for this opportunity that you've given me, this technology that you've granted me, that I am able to still get out and talk with everybody that is out here so that we make sure that we're protecting the flock and doing it in honor of you. We're working on this to expand the kingdom of God. This is why we do what we do, and we've been chosen. You chose us. You know our hearts. You have chosen us. And I thank you so much for the ministry that you've given us and the way that we can reach out to our friends. And it's always in your name. Amen. Anything else, dear?
Nope, we'll see you next week.
You'll have a great week. Be safe and be blessed.